As I think a lot of you folks know me, I'm on the Bloomington campus. I'm the CPSI navigator, as Jill said. I'd like to introduce Professor Nana Gletsu-Miller, who's in the Applied Health Science Department in the School of Public Health here at Bloomington. Nana is also the director, as she'll tell you about today, of the Nutrition Research Center on the Bloomington campus. Just a little bit of background. Dr. Gletsu-Miller got her PhD in nutrition and metabolism from the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada, and did a postdoc in pathology and molecular biology at Emory. She stayed in Emory for a little bit as an assistant professor in surgery, but then moved on to Purdue, where she became professor in the nutrition science department. And luckily, we snatched her away from the I guess the Boilermakers that they call themselves, and she's now here. And a lot of her research aim here in Bloomington is to evaluate nutritional solutions to promote the health of individuals undergoing clinical management of obesity and diabetes. Nana's very active in the lab in developing effective and safe dietary and supplemental strategies for improving nutritional outcomes following bariatric surgery. And finally, I'd like to say that Nana is also involved in research on prevention of youth onset type 2 diabetes in adolescents who have obesity. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Nana. She'll tell us about her new facility.
Thank you so much, Joel and Jill, for inviting me to give this seminar today. I'm really excited. This is a milestone that we've reached. I feel like that we are now able to talk about our center in this way, where we can describe our resources and facilities to you all. And so I'm really excited about this opportunity. So by way of outline, I'm going to provide a description of the center, how it was created, the history of that. And then I'll go into the resources that we have, the amazing personnel and the services that they can provide. And hopefully it will help to give you some examples of some of the current studies that are using the center. And then I'll finish with future directions, things that we have planned. So the reason for the center's creation is that at IU, we've been expanding our capacity for nutrition research, starting with just one faculty who was here in 2019. We've expanded by over threefold. So all the investigators you can see listed here were hired after 2019. Of the existing personnel in nutrition. And so you can see this large number of people have been hired. And then the ones that are shown in red are particularly doing clinical research using a facility that makes precise diets to provide to participants. So because we do what's called controlled feeding studies, we needed to have a kitchen, a research grade kitchen for us to do our work. And so we petitioned our school for that facility, and we also obtained funding. Thank you very much to the Indiana CTSI and the provost, the vice provost for research equipment fund. We obtained some funding to be able to purchase the equipment for research grade kitchen. We had to first create the facility. And so we had to decommission existing labs. So this is an example of the wet lab that was there when we first started. We had to completely decommission that lab. And then we started construction under the supervision of Susie Johnson in 2022. And it took us about 6 months or so to complete the construction. And I'll show you what the facility looks like in a minute. The ribbon cutting happened in 2023, and since then we've launched our facility for operation. And one of the main things we want to do this year is to apply to the CTSI to be a core facility. So this is what the facility looks like. We have the research kitchen that we were interested in, that's able to provide commercial grade and research grade food to participants. We also have clinical suites, which are shown here, a dining room, not shown is a bathroom, and then we still have a wet lab as well. So we have a fully capable research center that's able to provide meals for research studies, also do phenotyping of participants, and then do biospecimen analysis. And so that's basically the capacity of our center. So the mission of the Research Center is to support investigators to conduct scientifically rigorous nutrition research. We're mostly focused on cardiometabolic health, but we are interested in the same mission of the university to address other pressing public health issues in Indiana and beyond. We also wanting to support investigators within the CTSI network who want to use our center and provide high quality services to them as a fee-for-service facility. And we also want to have our facility open to public and private agencies. So examples could be drug companies that want to use our facility for research studies and foundations as well. And another part of our mission is to provide training and professional development for future nutrition scholars and practitioners. So we do have a dietetics program where we train students to obtain a dietetics degree. And this could be a place for them to undergo training and professional development. In fact, just a few minutes ago, we were hiring some students for our facility, which is exciting. And then we also want to take part in disseminating the research findings that we have to stakeholders. Those stakeholders could be other nutrition researchers, or they could be the lay public, community members, they could be clinicians and other practitioners. And so these are all our goals in terms of what we want to provide to investigators and to the public. And this is our staff, and I'm just so thrilled with our staff. We've been hiring them over time. The first thing we did, of course, was to build the center, but then we quickly realized that we need experts to make it run properly. And so in order of joining our group was Lisa Spence, who is a registered dietitian and a PhD, who has had many years of work in industry and has administered randomized controlled trials, controlled feeding studies like the ones that we're doing in our center. And then we have Corinne Nicholson, who is our kitchen manager. She's in charge of making sure that the kitchen is not only preparing the precise diets that I mentioned, but making them, preparing them safely. I laughed when I saw this picture of her because it has the caution sign behind her. Anyone who doesn't follow her rules in the kitchen would have to proceed with caution. She's quite strict about maintaining the standards that she has for the kitchen. And then we have our newest hire, who is Karen Sprague, who is in charge of the laboratory services and helping us to set up many of the standard operating procedures that we'll use not only in the lab, but also to help investigators with scheduling and training to use equipment, et cetera. And then we have a need for a clinical person, such as a nurse. And don't tell anyone, but we are making progress in acquiring a nurse. We think that we have a nursing person identified who the school will support to start helping us in our facility. She will be a registered nurse practitioner, so we'll be able to provide very top level services in that regard. But again, it's not official yet, so please don't tell anyone. When it comes to the bionutrition services, we are able to create diets. So that involves making recipes, that investigators are needing that match the nutritional profile that they are seeking. We're able to make full meals. We can also make snacks and beverages for our investigators, and I'll give you some examples of where we've done that. That's a big job. It takes about 3 hours to make a full day meal for a participant. So multiply that by 7, that's 21 hours for one participant's week of meals. I'm showing you this picture because that's an example of a week of meals that we can provide to a participant. This is actually where we're delivering that meal to a person. So we can not only provide the meals on site, but we can also deliver them to people who can't come to our campus. So those are some of the activities that we have in terms of menu creation and preparing and delivering food. I see that I have an error on my slide. We also can provide dietary assessment as part of our bionutrition services. That's not on the slide, but we're able to help investigators collect dietary intake of their participants, as well as assess the dietary intake of our participants. What is on the slide is that we can also measure intake of fruits and vegetables because we have an instrument that measures skinned carotenoids, which is correlated to fruit and vegetable intake. And I will show you a little bit more about that in a minute. So basically, in summary, our bionutrition services can provide meals, develop the recipes for those meals according to the nutritional profile that the investigators are seeking, and then deliver those meals or provide them to participants on site. We can also do assessment of dietary intake, either through the skin carotenoid measurement or various software that's used to help collect dietary intake information. Then moving on, we can also provide clinical services. So here's an example of one of our clinical suites. We're able to do anthropometry and body composition, so height, weight, body mass index, waist circumference, and sagittal abdominal diameter to measure abdominal obesity. And then we have our newest instrument is the air displacement plethysmography instrument, or the BODPOT for short. I'm showing that here with my pointer. It is the gold standard measurement of looking at body fat mass. For clinical phenotyping, we can do phlebotomy, catheter placement, and draws. That's one of the reasons why it's important to have a nurse. We can also do pregnancy testing and illicit drug testing. We can do other measurements of cardiometabolic risk. A lot of our instrumentation is point of care, meaning that we can get measurements in real time. So we can use these for screening participants, for example, measuring blood glucose, blood lipids, blood pressure, and glycated hemoglobin. I see that error on my slide there, sorry about that. We can also measure iron status in terms of hemoglobin and hematocrit, and then we can do electrolyte assessment as well. So these are examples of our clinical services. And then we can also do laboratory services in the wet lab. And so those would involve where we can analyze food for its energy content using a bomb calorimeter, which is what I'm showing here with my pointer. Not only can it be used to analyze food, but it can also be used to analyze biospecimens as well. So for investigators who are interested in energy content of fecal matter, which would be important to understand a person's absorption capacity, that's something that we're gearing up to be able to measure here. And then in terms of biospecimen management, we can help investigators with blood processing, and also specimen storage. So I'm showing you a picture of Karen helping one of our investigators, Dr. Perry, organize her samples in the freezer. I believe they're preparing them for shipment. And so we have a number of freezers, -80 freezers that can be used for specimen storage. So I'll stop here for a minute, and this is a good time to transition to the next area of our discussion, which will be on studies that use our clinical facilities. Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, I will then start talking about some examples of studies that use our facilities. So the study that started the first was one by Dr. Sidney Perry, who is interested in assessing the effects of a beef-based diet versus a plant-based diet on muscle health in older adults and muscle fatigue in older adults. Here I'm showing the intense in time and activity in the kitchen when we are making the diets for her, and also showing the students involved in that process. So these are students who are in training for either nutrition science or dietetics. And so they're getting experience working in a research grade kitchen, learning about how the menus are formulated and the meals are made, which we think contributes to their preparation for their careers. Another study, and this one is about to start, is one where we're kind of using the food as medicine concept. So we're working with an investigator, Dr. Craig Lambert, in gastroenterology at IU. He's funded by some donors who are interested, and I'm showing the donors here who are standing beside me. They are interested in whether non-inflammatory or a low-inflammatory diet, or a diet that prevents inflammation, can be used to support the health of people who have autoimmune hepatitis, which is an inflammatory disease. And so we decided to work with them and help them develop a diet. So we developed a Mediterranean diet, which is known for its anti-inflammatory properties. And we are in concert with Purdue Bionutrition. The director of Purdue Bionutrition is shown here. That's Amy Wright. She's working in concert with Lisa Spence, who I already introduced you to develop a Mediterranean diet for these participants. They will be eating the Mediterranean diet versus a standard American diet, so that's the control. They'll be crossing over to have both diets. We'll have each of the participants consume the diets for 8-week periods. And so we are gearing up to do that study, and that's a study where the food will be packed up and delivered. Another study that is also getting ready to start in the center is one where we are comparing a Mediterranean diet as the control. And in this case, we're comparing it to the Midwestern diet. The PI for the study is Misty Hawkins and David Allison. What we'll be doing in this study is making the participants the 2 different diets and asking the participants to rate them in terms of acceptability. The hypothesis is that people in the Midwest are going to be much more accepting of a Midwestern diet that is healthy than a diet that is specified by the Mediterranean criteria, which includes foods that are less familiar to our local population. What's really remarkable about what we've done so far in this study is that our dietitian, Lisa Spence, has been able to create a diet according to the specifications of making them healthy. One of the diets is Mediterranean. The nutritional profile is shown here. The Midwestern diet is created to match the nutritional profile of the Mediterranean diet. And you can see that all the measures are well matched, and the diets are healthy in terms of meeting the dietary recommendations. What's remarkable about this is that this study is sponsored by the Pork Board, and the diet contains 30% of its protein from pork. And so pork is the hypothesis of this study is that pork is much more familiar to our Midwestern population. versus fish, which would be what you would find in the Mediterranean diet. And so we hypothesized that our participants are going to be much more accepting of a Midwestern diet than a Mediterranean diet. And so we'll be testing that hypothesis. Another study, which is quite different, is we're not preparing meals in this study. We're preparing beverages for the investigator. The investigator is Zach Schlater. He's interested in determining whether consuming a sports drink sweetened with fructose during and following physical work in the heat will accurately worsen kidney dysfunction compared to consuming a sports drink sweetened with sucrose. What we had to do for this study is, again, make two different beverages that were identical in nutritional profile, but one was sweetened with fructose and one was sweetened with sucrose. That actually was a lot more complicated than we realized because of the different osmolarities of sucrose, fructose, and glucose, which is part of the formula of sports drinks. And so it took us a little while to create that, but we are quite excited that the study is underway and the participants are currently consuming those drinks. Another study that actually is being done by our group is using the bomb calorimeter. So that's the instrument I mentioned earlier that's able to determine the energy content of food. Here we're working with the dietitians at IU Dining, and they've given us some common foods that are consumed in the cafeteria, and we are to use our instrument to determine if the calories that are calculated for those foods are equivalent to what the instrument calculates. So basically verifying that these calculations are correct based on the precise estimation from the bomb calorimeter. So that study is underway, and we hope to make some more headway to get those answers in the summer. So I'll stop here again before I go into the future plans and ask if anyone has any questions. All right, so hearing none, this is some of the plans that we have upcoming. So we would like to develop further our ability to use instruments to analyze foods and biospecimens in our lab. So generally, when people are calculating information on energy, fat, protein, and fiber in foods, they use equations. The equation, namely, is the 4-4-9 method, meaning 4 calories in carbohydrate, 4 calories in protein, and 9 calories in fat. And based on the recipe, they're able to calculate the energy content of that food. There's also a need to use food composition tables in order to create the nutritional profile of certain foods. But these are all estimates. There are lots of problems with using that approach. So we would like to develop further capacities to use instruments to analyze the nutrient composition of food. So we already have the bomb calorimeter, but eventually we'd like to also obtain a fat and protein and fiber, fat and protein analyzer, also to do fiber analysis. And that way we can precisely measure the food that we create, we can precisely validate the food that we create in the kitchen for our own research studies. So for researchers who are doing these controlled feeding studies, we can take the food we prepare and then analyze it to verify that we had all of our recipe calculations correct. But we can also provide the same service to commercial groups. So mom and pop food producers who don't have food labels with information on calories and fat and protein, we can help them, instead of using this method, actually create that information precisely. And of course, as I mentioned, we're already working with our campus to validate the calorie content of foods that are prepared on campus. So we are going to be seeking from equipment fund grants, et cetera, the capacity to buy the fat and protein analyzers. Another activity that we have planned is to form a merged nutrition and exercise research center. So here we are planning on partnering with folks in exercise physiology in the kinesiology department in the School of Public Health. And this is a very exciting merger because what I'm showing you in this table is the clinical services that we provide. The ones I've bolded are the ones that would be enhanced, or actually not enhanced, but additional to the services that we already provide. So the unbolded services are the ones I've already shown you, but in addition to those services, we would be able to provide things like dual X-ray absorptiometry, which can be the gold standard for measuring bone density, as well as muscle and fat composition. We'd be able to do exercise testing, gait analysis, and then exciting facilities over in kinesiology are able to measure resting energy expenditure and then also 24-hour energy expenditure. This is a capacity that's only available in a few centers in the country. And then on top of that, they have environmental chambers that are used to measure, put people under heat stress and cold stress so that we can vary those conditions as we do different testings. Beyond the additional capacities, because we do a lot of these types of activities in common with kinesiology folks, we would increase our staff that are available, our expertise and staff and equipment that are available to do all of these services. So it really would be a win for both of our groups to form a merge center. And we are proposing that to our school for that support. Another thing that we hope to do in the future is to support off-campus clinical research activities that are done in the community. We are already supporting health fairs that are being done by folks in nursing, for example, who have classes around students going to health fairs, and we've been providing a nutritional component to those. So here is a chance for me to talk about the skin carotenoid assessment tool. It's called a Vegimeter. What participants do is they are able to quickly get a reading by putting their finger on the instrument. It gives you a measure of how many servings of fruits and vegetables you're getting in every day. This is the student that was in nutrition that was helping us with that activity, and this is a participant. And here is Dr. Spence being able to give some dietary counseling to the person after they get their reading. We're also very interested in providing some services that I've already mentioned in a mobile unit that will be able to go to areas off campus in order to provide clinical research to participants. And then the last of the activities that we have upcoming, and probably not the least, is to apply to the CTSI to be a core facility. That will involve lots of activities, some of which are already underway, where we are not only filling out the application form, but also forming advisory boards, creating a fee for service so that all of our activities have fees associated with them, implementing a tracking platform called Webcam that is going to help us track the use of the facility, scheduling participants, and billing for the services that we provide. And so in summary, I hope that you have a sense of the types of activities, bionutrition, clinical, and laboratory that we provide in our facility. I'm really grateful to the amazing staff that are helping us with providing those activities. Also to the school for building the facility and helping us to staff it. investigators such as Misty Hawkins and Evan Jordan, who actually put up some of their own funding to support the building of the center. And then, of course, the CTSI, the IU Research Equipment Fund, IU Capital Planning and Facilities to help with the renovation. The renovation was actually done by Sam Nail and Building Associates. And then really spearheading the effort was Susie Johnson, who I call our Shiro, because without her, none of this would have been possible. And I am done. I wanted to give lots of time for questions. And so I will stop sharing my screen so that we can do that.
That was a really nice overview and detail some of the studies that are going on right now. I have a couple of questions. I wonder about whether folks in the School of Public Health have thought about looking at the nutritional needs or requirements of people who have different emotion type of diseases. I'm thinking of Parkinson's or even a Huntington's disease, where there's a lot of, the kinetics are very different from the normal person. So I'm wondering if there's thought that has gone into if they have nutritional deficiencies that have to be addressed or what. I'm not sure if folks are looking into that.
Well, I mean, this is an excellent type of study that would require multi-investigators, some in kinesiology, and I know some of those do study biomechanics and gait, and probably have studied them in Parkinson's, in patients who have Parkinson's, excuse me. And then because we are working together with investigators in kinesiology, I can easily envision a project where we can provide diets as they are investigating energy expenditure for the participants in their metabolic chamber. So you may have given us an idea for another type of project, but yes, I mean, this is why it's great that we're so closely intertwined with kinesiology folks, because that would be the type of phenotyping that they'd want to do. And we can certainly support that with our center and providing diets so that you would precisely know how much they're getting in, how much they're absorbing, how much they are using, and whether they are meeting their energy needs, et cetera.
Yeah, and the reason I really bring that up is because Indiana, I used to study Huntington's disease from a molecular chemistry standpoint, but Indiana is one of, I think, the top third in the country with folks who have PhD. And as the disease develops, they develop this inability to eat. So nutrition becomes more and more important as the disease progresses. And so you have that motion component, the kinesiology component, but then you also have this maybe dropping off of nutrition just because of inability to eat properly. So that's why I thought about maybe something like that would be helpful, and maybe a study like that, may be something people can do if you do a collaboration.
I agree. I think we're excited that we have populations that are more clinical to investigate. And so our autoimmune hepatitis study is one where, we have people with active disease and we can have access to a population like that. So I think, again, I can easily see having the expertise in kinesiology, folks like you who understand the molecular mechanisms, and then us who can help with the nutrition aspect, putting something like that together.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Afo. I'm just curious to know, Dr. Nana, the capacity as a core. So let's say we want to study maybe the whole population, not the whole, maybe 50, 70, like sample you are getting. Is your capacity able, what's the maximum in that extent? And what would be the fees? Like that PI studying the Mediterranean diet versus, what will be approximately the fees?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're working on the fees. I'll start with that. We're working on the fees currently. We have a guide because we are working very closely with the Purdue Bionutrition Center, and they have created fees for the services. I imagine ours would be similar. It's around $66 a day for me, for one participant to be fed. But it's much more complicated than that. We have to put a lot of different factors into creating fees, including cost of the food, staff time, instrument maintenance, etc., consumables, all of that. So that's underway. And then you asked about the time it takes. So thank you for that question. It takes about, like I said, 3 hours to make one participant's food for one day. So it's about 7 hours to make, 21 hours to make those boxes of food I showed you. That means that we need, helpers to help the kitchen manager. And I showed you some pictures of the students who help with that. And we only have a small kitchen, so we can't, we have a capacity there of how many meals we can make. We are about to find out what our capacity is, because we have 3 different studies that want to use the kitchen, and all of them have, at least 20 to 30 participants that they are interested in putting through. I say a study like at least one of the studies that we have would take at least 1 or 2 years to do, because it takes time for the food preparation. That is definitely a limiting factor. You have to have enough time to make the food for the participants and make it safely and ship it to them, etc. I hope I've answered your question. I don't know the exact answer actually just yet, how many studies we can support.
I was just curious. As a new call, we went through the same year. That's pretty normal. And very nice talk, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Nana. Brenda Smith here. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Couple of questions for you. So in your food analysis, and I think your plans, if I caught this correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, seems like understandably the emphasis on fat and protein and then fiber. Are there any plans to move beyond that, or to partner with other labs that might provide, say, some more specific in terms of fiber types and micronutrient analysis and that sort of thing? Or kind of what are you?
Absolutely. Thank you, Brenda, for this question. Sorry to cut you off. Were you finished? Yeah. Okay. Yes, we do want to partner. In fact, I'm very interested in the capacities on campus to help us with some of this analysis. I did mean to bring that up in my talk. And so we can measure calories, but we can't yet measure fiber. I'd love to know if anyone on campus can do that. We are interested in measuring all the micronutrients. And the reason I was going to bring this up actually is one of the investigators that reached out to us recently who wants to use the bomb calorimeter to measure fecal energy content. We would need a lyophilizer, a freeze dryer. And so I do want to know what capacities are around campus to do things like that. Like if there's a freeze dryer around, or does anyone know how to measure? Do they have instrumentation for fiber analysis, etc.? So I did want to bring that up. So thank you for the question.
Can I ask one other one just really quickly? And that is, it sounds like to me that the center would be set up for potentially for postprandial studies or post-exercise studies and that sort of thing eventually with your partnership with kinesiology. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean, that is, I think, a unique feature of our facilities, because generally people measure people at fasting, right? I think that's what you're getting at, and we don't know if you don't challenge, if you challenge the person by a meal, you might see a different physiology and more representative of their health than just giving them a fasting test. The chamber that they have in kinesiology, and I'm hoping at some point they can present their facilities, is ideal for this. The person's there for 24 hours, and so they're doing all their functions within that capacity, within that facility, and that whole time their energy is being assessed. Energy consumption is being assessed. So yes, we could do a study like that, and it would be quite unique.
Sorry, I assume blood draws and that sort of thing could be collected as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I may need to talk with you more, so thank you for
Yeah.
presenting today.
Awesome. Thank you, Brenda.
I was just gonna say, you know, that as far as looking for people or technologies that you might need to do some of your studies, you know, please reach out to me, you know, because I am the ATP liaison for this campus, and so there's a lot of biochemistry and chemistry facilities that probably don't normally do nutritional types of projects, but they may have the capacity to do some of the things you might want to do down the road. So, you know, if you want to reach out to me with like certain needs, I could certainly talk to the core directors and say, hey, can you do something like this? So that would be easy.
Great. Yeah, I don't want us to duplicate any instruments or, you know, expertise that's already on campus. So that would definitely be helpful. Thank you, Joel.
Dr. Miller, my name is Mike Rieger from Notre Dame. I am interested in the study that you mentioned that where you're comparing the listed number of calories to the actual when you actually analyze the food. Do you have a sense from previous studies or a lit review how accurate those numbers usually are, or is this like nobody does this and it, you know, it is brand new information? Because you know, the mac and cheese, baked mac and cheese at 249 calories or something seems rather low to me. I would expect it to be higher. So do you know how accurate those usually are?
So it depends on sometimes they're extremely accurate. We've seen that, and other times they're not. So, and we haven't done much work on this, but I'm calling from the literature. There are studies where they've shown the inaccuracies in calorie estimation on packaged foods versus, and restaurant foods especially, versus the calories that are estimated using the instrument. But in our hands, when we've analyzed a package of Doritos, it was remarkably accurate. And I suspect that the major industries, food industries, have a more accurate method of estimating calories that they put on their packaging than what you would find in restaurants or Kroger, for example. Kroger, in fact, our dean wanted to do a study where he checked on the food at Kroger, cookies at Kroger, and found that they were inaccurate. And we told him, no, we didn't want to do that and then have Kroger be mad at us. So yeah, there is some data on inaccuracies and calories on labels, but I think for the more established industries, they're probably quite accurate.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question.
There's any other questions? I just wanted to say, Nana, I'm really happy to see that you're putting together your application for CTSI designated core. Reach out, feel free to reach out to me or our coordinator, Jenna York, if you have any questions about that application, we can help you out.
Thank you. We will do that shortly. There's a lot of moving pieces, and again, the merger with kinesiology is something that we just started talking about. It's really exciting. I don't know how things will work in terms of whether we have the approval to do that first before we become a core or not. But in the meantime, we're moving forward with all the things that we have to do because our studies are already operational. So I could probably reach out to you soon. Thanks so much, Joe.
Sure. All right, if there's no further questions, I'd like to thank everyone for joining and thank Nana again for presenting. It's really exciting possibility for a new core thing.